All right, I think it's good time to start.
Yep. So again, welcome everybody. Well, that's a good point. Let me start my camera as well. Great. And we're doing this with the webinar sign up. So sometimes people forget and we have to sign up beforehand, but we're giving out the link as well, so it's not an issue.
Yep. Also, today we are, as you see, we are not as usual together because of the challenges with this time of the year with viruses, etc. But hopefully next time would be as usual. And we're experimenting with this type of event. So please let us know if your feedback, if you find it better or you prefer to have directly the registration link. The purpose for this is just to have some kind of reminder in your meeting. It's not about using your email or whatsoever. So yeah, we will appreciate your feedback. And with that said, welcome to our 5th AI Talks meeting, where we will dive deeper in Azure OpenAI implementation, the feedback from the field, and also we'll cover, as usual, some of the updates which happened in the past, I don't know, month. And quick introduction. Maybe Nikki Panchev will start first this time.
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Nikolai, and I guess I can sort of introduce both of us to an extent,
Yeah.
but we've been doing this meeting for it's actually our 4th time, isn't it? Well, not the 5th. Or
I
I'm
think
making
it's
this up.
really
Okay. And we're doing so many of these that sometimes I forget to actually see what number it is, but it doesn't really matter because we actually have a different group which we started previously for cloud infrastructure, but because this is where our main expertise was, but in kind of lately and for the last more than a year or so, we've been focusing heavily on AI implementation in big corporate environments, whereas and just AI in general, we've been very enthusiastic about it, and it kind of initially from a hobby, it became a sort of our full-time job, as they say. And we decided to organize these groups so we can share a bit of our experience, uh, let people know about the latest trends because so many things are happening at the same time. And this is really how the group came about, and we really enjoy doing it. More of a kind of a sort of a community effort, but I think you can get plenty out of it for sure. And yeah, like I said, our background, mine is particularly in corporate environments and cloud infrastructure, security, but yeah, we are really focused on AI. And Nikki?
Yes, as Nikki mentioned, similar background, a lot of cloud infrastructure, security, mainly focused on helping the organization adopt the cloud. Now doing the same thing, similar thing, let's say, with AI technologies. And the focus of this group is to bring some value to you, some of our some experience from the actual project that we've done. And let's get started.
Yep.
So, as usual, with some of the updates,
Maybe let's just say what
sure.
the agenda is for today.
Yeah.
What we do in this group or in this meeting is we usually go through some of the updates since the last time we had an event. We go through some of the updates that we found meaningful that we want to share with you, and kind of in the second part of the event, we'll do a sort of a deep dive into our experience with implementing Azure OpenAI in large enterprises, some takeaways from it. I think generally it will be some useful information that we've gathered for you, and maybe you can reuse in your job or project that you may start.
Yep. Yep. So starting with the updates, we've been working like in the almost past year of let's say playing as Nikki mentioned, starting with a hobby and playing around. But since the rise of GPT 3.5, we were wondering how we can make these models working together. So this idea of agents, it's not something new, by the way, but we wondered about efficient ways how this can communicate. And soon after that, frameworks like AutoGPT, BabyG, AGI came. Uh, I think we discussed this in our first AI talks last year. That we are so excited. Then we discussed about, we were very excited about AutoGen. There's some recent introduction like QAI and also LangGraph. But what bother us is these agents. Uh, uh, all of these frameworks were pretty good for making agents work together. However, the results were pretty not stable, if I can say that way. So you have, for some of them, you have the ability to organize the agent. You have let's say, fine-tune options where you can um, make the agents communicating a little bit more effectively. But at the end, what uh, what I thought is that actually, if we would like to make the agents working better, we shall optimize them and organize them, communicate them in a better way. So I spent a lot of time of exploring this because both of us had a lot of projects helping organizations transform themselves, and we see a lot of challenges coming from the actual organizational structure. So what we actually done is applied a similar approach to the agent organization, and in that's the and the result from this is as I name it, AI topologies framework, where this framework uh, help us organizing agents, AI agents, in a way which they become more effective based on the specific task. They provide much better result with the same prompt, with the same models, but with different organization of the agent teams, of the agent communication, which team, the hierarchy, different type of structures. There's also different type of configurations of the agents because there's some fine tuning needed in order to get better result. And happily, after a lot of tests, and thanks to some of the latest frameworks which make this possible, because at the beginning this was more like how to say, high level researches, what apply to this, what not. But at the end, we have some good patterns, which I will be happy to share in some of our next session. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. We saw that actually this agentic AI system rose, and people start looking at it even for the production usage. I saw a lot of my connection in both, of course, Twitter and LinkedIn. They start asking about any use cases. They start implementing it for at scale. And of course, the most popular framework is AutoGen. But people start realizing the power of having, instead of having large language models, just bringing up some smaller language model, which are a lot more specialized, and having this, if I can say, velocity and speed of the entire system, where you have the specific agent with specific capabilities in order to do the specific job. So we believe that this would be a pretty hot topic this year. Maybe it would happen like mm, I don't know. It's still early, let's say that way. We've seen that organization is still fighting with the most common use case, like chatbots and chatting with their documents, if I can say that way. But yeah, that's how we see the things will going on from now. And yeah, this especially with open source models, which we'll touch a bit later. Oh, Nikki, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this effort that especially you have put in creating and working on will have a lot of impact going forward. As we mentioned, the word is getting around about agents and agent swarms and just kind of the next buzzword, probably the next chat GPT kind of an impact that we're going to have from AI. So I think what we're going to do in the next few sessions is dive deeper as we make progress, especially when we start implementing this in a more real world use cases. I think that will be very useful for the people here to see how this works in practice. We obviously want to do some demos at some point that will kind of showcase this firsthand. But from what we can tell and what we see overall in the industry, this will have a big impact. And that's why we're excited about it and putting so much effort in, not only researching, but seeing how it can be useful for people in the real world and kind of in the field.
Yep. Yep. Other from that, what we see is also that the large organization are all in the let's say this formal movement. So everybody would like to get on board. The AI is adopted in I would say every possible way that you can imagine in the organization. There's, let's say, not that new stuff. It was pretty similar with the cloud adoption in the past when some, let's say, team in a large organization saw that, oh, this is great technology, we want to have it. And they move forward. And this happened on, let's say, in large organization, which has, let's say, tens, hundreds of teams. It happens very uncontrolled, unplanned, and this kind of stuff. So we see that this is becoming even, I'll not say worse, but let's say the appetite for the AI technologies become bigger and bigger with more and more use cases brought up from the industry, from the community. And what we believe is that it's really a time to organization to sit down and start thinking about getting this more organized, more planned, put some effort in order to build their strategy appropriately and adopt it the right way. Because both of us, and I'm sure a lot of you are tired. I know that some of you for sure, but I'm sure we all are tired of fixing wrong cloud adoptions. Let's say fast cloud adoptions. So let's help and let's hope that this time it would be done in the right way. This is one of the reasons why we from next session we'll start doing some effort in more. Something like how we can help the organization to accelerate their cloud adoption journey, to help them to do it the right way, similarly with the cloud, how to build their strategy, how to plan into its execution, how to communicate all of this. So most probably we'll spend more and more time on this in our next sessions. Please let us know if you think that this would be something useful for you. Your feedback is valuable.
We're going to be working on some real kind of practice documents and guidances that will hopefully will be helpful to everyone, because everything is so new. I mean, there's a lot of information floating around, but it's not really structured. So when you actually sit down and start implementing AI solutions on that scale, it's hard to kind of synthesize the process right now. It's you get too many different opinions, and yeah, I think it's time to put some real processes behind this, and help people do this properly, like what we already have for cloud, as Nikki said.
Yeah, and then the focus will not be only on the Azure cloud. We'll try to be more general, let's say, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
guidance will be more specific.
Although we are a lot focused on Microsoft for good or bad, I think we, especially with AI, we've established that it's actually one of the few technologies that pushes you to go beyond kind of the vendor-centric approach and really adopt the right service. It doesn't matter where it's placed, where it's hosted, who manages it, if it's even managed by a cloud provider somewhere. Me and Nick are heavily focused on kind of using local LLMs and models. So yeah, it really goes beyond the Microsoft arena. Although today's session is about Azure OpenAI, it's just one of the fast tracks to get to AI currently. But I think this will change as companies build out capacities to host these locally, or it's just AI will be done everywhere, and just what will make it, the choice will be made by kind of the cost effectiveness and really what is best to place it, not with which vendor.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And also even Microsoft and the other vendors are spending a lot of time. They invest heavily in the open source models as well. So it's I don't think it's something let's say competitive internal competition or something like this. So the most popular use cases which we see is still chatbot in the large enterprises, chatbots which are connected and do interact with internal data. This continued in different kinds of implementation, but even in the studies, this confirmed by other of our colleagues that the organization are really focusing on start first with chatbots, more capable chatbots, because the chatbots, I'm sure you're aware, they came like maybe 4 years ago or something like that in the large organization, 4 or 5 even. But right now they become much more capable, especially with the services that we're going deeper, provided by Microsoft. The entire portfolio, the entire integration make the chatbot adoptions extremely, I'll not say easy, but seamless. And the ability to have a chatbot who is well integrated with Teams, it's pretty straightforward. As Nikki shown us at, I think in one of the previous talks. So yeah, Nikki, what do you think about your experience? What about what else do you think that?
Yeah, by far, chatbots are the most kind of most companies will start there. I mean, there's so many alternatives to ChatGPT now. Again, using maybe the same models or hosted models, but in different variations, different interfaces, maybe integrated into other applications. But as what we can tell, and for the people who have more observations in the real world, we see how LLMs are being integrated into applications everywhere. It's just all these vendors made it so simple. You just get a API somewhere, and you start asking it questions. So it won't be long before any sort of these SaaS services has a sort of a ChatGPT type of interface. And chatbots in general are making a revolution in the kind of the service management field, because the voice capability, translation, vision made it so that replacing the usual first lines of support is a real reality now. I mean, we've really become and we really come to this point where a sort of a service desk type of agent can be replaced by an AI chatbot in general. I mean, just answering questions that are common, and doing simple actions is just super easy. Resetting passwords, giving guidances, even the responses that you get from the speech service and the kind of text to speech services that are available in Azure and other vendors. 11 Labs, was that the name? Yeah. I mean, they're so real. People are fully convinced they're talking to a person. So chatbots in all shapes and sizes are kind of infiltrating all corporate environments currently.
Yep. And I'm sure that all of you are aware of this new type of devices like Rabbit Air 1. I guess even some of you may order it. But the way how we're interacting with LLMs and in general with technologies would drastically change very soon.
Yep.
So, yep, we discussed a bit about the local model. So there's, we believe that this year, 2024, would be even better for them. I think a few days ago, there were a new version of called Llama, which gets similar performance to GPT-4 in terms of coding ability. They were general, let's say, coding model, and also one which is more focused on Python. I already had the ability to run the general one, which is 70 billion parameters, and it's performing on my NVIDIA setup pretty fast. I didn't measure the actual tokens, but it's very, very good performance. I would say even better than the Mixtral or Dolphins, which are based again on Mixtral. So we expect that these models to become better and better. There were some, I think 2 weeks ago or something, there were a new model from Hermes. I think it's based on Hermes 2. It's again, it's fine-tuned version of Mixtral, which also perform very well. Also these models which are uncensored models, all the Dolphins models are also, there were some new model which was pretty interesting to play. It was 120 billion parameters, which was I think fine-tuned by talking with itself or something like this. But yeah, there's a lot of rise in this, a lot of rise in the performance, and also I think even from yesterday it was this leakage from Mixtral of the it was Miku, which is actually the Mistral Medium, one of the earliest version of Mistral Medium. So definitely, if you have the hardware, talking about the hardware, so you can run this model on very, how to say, modest video card, because the majority of model come with different size and with different quantization. So most of the models can be 7 billion, can be 13 billion, can be 70 billion parameters. And for example, 7 billion parameters would run on the majority of laptops without any issues. There's also some small models like Tiny Llama, which are, I think it was 1.6 or something billion parameters.
Phi 2 as well.
Phi 2 as well from Microsoft, yes. So definitely we encourage you to experiment with this. You can run it extremely easy with LM Studio locally. And if you'd like to have a little bit more, the other option is Olama. We started at the beginning with LM Studio, but quickly switched to Olama. The performance is very nice. If you have MacBooks with M processors, actually, we've been testing this as well because we have both platforms, and the performance of MacBooks is really, really good comparing to the consumer NVIDIAs. So you achieve much better efficiency in terms of performance compared to the actual token per second. And also the one good announcement was I think it was late December from Apple, their MLX framework, where you can develop and run models locally on your Macs. So what we saw in terms of performance, it's still we're talking for inference. So it's like we running the same model with Llama provide you double the performance on the MacBook comparing with running the same model on MLX, but also the consumption is double, the power consumption. So we're talking here about like it was like 75 watts comparing with 35 to 40, but it's very promising, and in general we think that MacBooks would be, especially this one which are with 64 plus gigabyte memory, would be pretty interesting for everybody. And also this the most powerful Mac Mac Pro machines, which are coming with M2 Ultra, and maybe this year we'll have the M3 Ultra. We also think that this will start finding more and more place in the enterprises as really effective solutions comparing with NVIDIA. Of course, you can buy much cheaper, as I do for my machine, NVIDIA graphic cards. And but again, the power consumption, the efficiency is not at that level at all.
Yeah, I think yeah, for Macs, they will find more and more use up in the enterprise, especially when it comes to inference, because what we see in the future is a lot more kind of self-hosted models will be around. You see how they're trying to put them in devices, endpoints. The next iterations of the kind of the mobile devices will probably have some sort of a local LLM in them because they become so powerful, and a lot of these vendors have been thinking about this future for a while, so they started integrating a lot of these AI accelerated hardware parts, I guess, in the chips. So they've set the stage for this a long time ago, and I think it's just a matter of time before we have local models which will definitely be more which will make these devices a lot more useful, because the existing virtual agents, they're useful to an extent, but compared to what an LLM can do for you is nothing pretty much.
Absolutely. And talking about this synergy, we'll see in one of the session, or one part of actually this walkaway events can streamline the actual AI adoption. And this is because of not only because some of the organization don't want to put anything on the cloud, but there is also something called like you can have like a decentralized distributed way of adopting the, let's say, AI technologies. For example, we are just had a use case with a large team of developers where they would like to have to improve their capabilities. So the options was to use things like GitHub Copilot and some of these tools, which are like, I think it was Other and some other paid platform. But at the end, it's extremely easy, especially if you put on the if you provide them, let's say, MacBooks with even 32 or 64 gigabytes of memory. It's much better to have central strategic way to deploy on each of these MacBook or Llama, and having some of these coding methods and using some of the plugins of Visual Studio Code directly connected to this. And this is very beneficial in way of distributing the overall compute and having single point or of failure. It's at the end, it's become much better and cost-effective solution for the organization. So this is one of the benefits of another benefits of the local models, and that's why it's very important to have a more strategic way of how you plan to adopt all of this in your organization. I think it's a good example as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Also, we discovered, yeah,
I think we have a few more news to mention, but yeah, we don't. We still have the agenda for Azure OpenAI, so stay tuned.
Yep. Okay. Yep. You can jump in directly. Good like.
Yeah. Do we wanna start? I mean, with AI, and me and Nikki were so enthusiastic about it. We can talk about all of the news and stuff that's happening all day, but we still want to be conscious of your time for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I think. By the way, I forgot to mention, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. If you want to talk, we can raise your hand. We can unmute you as well. I mean, we're here to help. Like we said, it's our goal is to kind of provide back to the community. We're not doing this for any sort of commercial purposes or anything. So it's your time if you want to ask anything, or you can do it. After we conclude the talks about Azure OpenAI, that will be fine as well. But I prepared a couple of slides. So really the point of this is just to showcase some of our experience working with these services in practice, and especially in a sort of a large environment, which is always more challenging than just kind of deploying it in your home lab or anything. You have to account for many different obstacles and issues that may come around. So give me just 1 second, and I'll share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see it.
Yes.
You can confirm. Okay, so what do we have? Let's spend some time just to talk about Azure OpenAI, Azure AI services, their application in a large enterprise, and generally what can we get out of these services from Microsoft. And we full disclosure, we are kind of focused on a lot on the Microsoft implementations, but it's more of a coincidence that we're doing this now. I mean, probably on the next few sessions and our demos will be around more on the open source models and community things that we've been working on. So it's just, yeah, Azure OpenAI is something that's really used currently. So we decided to do a presentation on it. So what are the common AI workloads in an organization? Currently, we have machine learning, which has been around for a while. I mean, it's sort of the foundation of AI. And it's been something that or companies have been using for a while. We have data scientist teams, and we have whole businesses around machine learning models, training of models. This is nothing new. Even to Azure, this has been a service that was provided for a while, and it's really a foundation. But lately, with the explosion of LLMs, a lot of that functionality has trickled into the service. Microsoft really revamped the way the machine learning capabilities are being used and presented. So this is definitely something that is gaining more traction now. Computer vision. This is also something that has been available for years. I remember a friend of mine was doing a project at least 6 or 7 years ago for reading car registration plates and using Azure as an endpoint to kind of do all the computer vision capabilities. So this is nothing new, but generally this is has a lot of huge usage in manufacturing. I mean, predictive maintenance, all sorts of areas computer vision is useful for. Natural language processing, we touched a bit more about bots, text to speech, speech to text, translation. All of these capabilities have been adopted widely, but now with the inclusion of LLMs, this is gaining a lot more traction. Document intelligence, working with high volumes of data in terms of unstructured data like documents. We know enterprises have huge amounts of it, especially with the adoption of the cloud, where we've been giving a lot of space. Sadly, a lot of these have become dumping grounds for data, which is difficult to manage, interpret, use overall. And the document intelligence services in Azure provide you with the ability to, use an LLM and also being able to process this data. We're going to talk about a bit more on that, but generally we're able to identify voices and other types of widely used documents, take data from them and store them in indexes where they can be used. Talking about indexes, this is the next service that's gaining a lot of traction, the Azure AI Search, which is involved in the so-called knowledge mining. Their kind of document intelligence and knowledge mining usually go hand in hand. And last but not least, of course, I mean, probably I can put it in the top currently, is the generative AI, or Gen AI, as they call it, where you kind of combine all of these capabilities and the offerings that we get from OpenAI currently on the enterprise level, as well as the inclusion of open source models from Hugging Face, makes it very easy to do generative AI within a corporate environment. So these are kind of your typical AI workloads. They're not inclusive of everything, obviously, but they do sum up a great deal of the kind of the examples that we have. So what is generative AI? I mean, since you're part of this call, you probably already have an idea, or hopefully. I mean, we've been talking about models and the different ways we've been using ChatGPT and other services like that. But what is generative AI? It's a way to I like this description: imitates human behavior by using machine learning to interact with the environment and execute tasks without explicit directions on what to output. I mean, this kind of sums it up pretty well. And these capabilities of natural language generation, image generation, now that we have models that can do it, and also I want to put emphasis on code generation, because code generation has become such a valuable tool set in LLMs. I mean, this is expanding their reach so far, not only helping developers, but integrating and doing more, executing. We mentioned about the AutoGen framework and the others. Really, the code generation is essential for that. So these three pillars make up Gen AI is what it is right now, and more capabilities are being brought up by kind of visionaries like OpenAI and other companies. But for now, we started with natural language generation. Image generation has picked up quite rapidly with things like Stable Diffusion, Midnight Journey, DALI, and all of these great services that can generate really kind of true to life images. photorealistic images. And if you're talking about how close they can get, but any sort of image, if you do the right prompting, and I think it's possible at this point.
I just want to double down on the code generation
Yeah.
ability. As Nikki mentioned, the main goal is, of course, it's very nice that they can help this is very helpful to developers, but actually I would say more strategic and long run, it's important that we provide them the ability to build their tools. The tools that they would need for the job, the tools that we may not be aware that this is better tools than the tools that we thought that we shall give them. So we saw what in our work, and especially the work with the agents, very interested how to say behaviors and ways of and very creative ways of approaching different problems by using this ability to generate code and build the tools by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, people are combining these like natural language generation and code generation, or it's we've been given a tool set and capabilities, and now we've let people run with their imagination. It's like it's so many creative things are happening in this field right now. Many, as you see, many startups are showing up just trying to figure out age-old problems which were not solvable easily. Now it's becoming a reality how you can do it. So
New
definitely,
challenge.
yeah, I mean, it's very encouraging, sure.
Yeah.
With all of the caveats that AI has, with all of the fears that everybody have, including us, of course, is just we still want to stay positive. We want to make sure that we take advantage of what's in front of us, because it's we see it more as an opportunity than anything else. Talking about the specifics in Azure, because these are kind of so far were more general terms. What do we have? So Azure Machine Learning. Here we have a couple of different studio kind of the interfaces, the studio, the development studio. I mean, all sorts of things that are tied to Azure Machine Learning, and really this will be targeted towards really machine learning specialists, or people who are looking to get more than just the out of the box experience that you get with, let's say, Azure OpenAI. Here you can train models, test out models. This is sort of a still untapped territory for a lot of people, even with people who been using Azure for a long time. The machine learning services have been kind of a niche, but lately, as AI has infiltrated a lot of the teams, and people are looking to maybe change their professional aspect and what they do, I think a lot more people will be doing Azure Machine Learning. The next one in line is Azure AI Services. This is kind of the umbrella of services that most fall under. It used to be called Cognitive Services. Microsoft loves to rebrand stuff every now and then. So even the slide that I'm using is a bit old. The last part where it says cognitive search is now AI search. So they're still organizing a lot of these namings, but under Azure AI Services, we have vision, speech, language decision, generative AI, and under cognitive search, we have the kind of the knowledge mining capabilities, which is mostly Azure AI search in resources, indexes, and that underlying technology with document enrichment. So these are kind of the focus areas for Azure for now. I think they will expand more and more. Even in the last year, they've deployed a lot more capabilities. Microsoft is still not able to cope with the demand that they have for these services, especially OpenAI. They've been struggling to get more and more data centers out. and get all the infrastructure in place so it can serve everybody. And their cooperation with OpenAI is forcing them to be to constantly try and keep up, because once OpenAI rolls up a new model, they have to deploy all their infrastructure. Uh, Azure in general is very easy to consume or kickstart some of these projects, because you just you pay for your inference, and you already have all the necessary infrastructure. But let's talk about that a little later in the slide. Economic benefits of using Azure AI in general. Um, it can drive significant cost savings across operations once it's implemented correctly, as anything in the cloud. I mean, this is not just strictly for Azure AI. This will go for any of the services that we use from a cloud perspective. It can, I mean, with every line here, I say can because you can do things wrong and you can go the opposite way. Enhances the organizational productivity through automation and AI-driven insights. That's a no-brainer. I mean, automation is really the prime targets of AI. You want to automate most of these tasks people have been doing manually, or even have not been doing, for that matter. I mean, AI will do stuff that we've not been able to do, and we've just been neglecting. Innovation accelerator. I mean, innovation is at the heart of AI currently. I mean, this is where we are at the point now. It hasn't been established. There are so many areas in the business where you can innovate and integrate it. So it's really something that you want to be positioning. I mean, you want to have a team of innovators who want to make AI as applicable as possible to the business. So innovation is definitely at the heart of it. Industry transformation. You want to demonstrate how industries can change by doing this. Especially in fields like manufacturing, data processing, all sorts of industries would be targeted by this transformation. It more or less will be forced out because, like Nikki said, there's so much FOMO around, and everybody wants to be part of this because there's such a competitive advantage. And yeah, competitive, strategic. AI is becoming part of the digital transformation. When we were talking about digital transformation previously, we were talking about things like cloud and digitizing processes, and but now AI will be kind of the central forefront. Use cases. We've touched on this a bit earlier, but kind of your typical use cases where to start. Customer service, for sure. One of the first things that you can directly integrate chatbots. Sentiment analysis, something that we've been missing. I mean, once you start doing service management, it's hard to figure out from kind of the pools of data that you have how satisfied is your customer base. I mean, based on the data that you've gathered. That's not easy to figure out. But with the LLMs in particular, this has become a lot more easier. Operational efficiency, streamlining tasks, routine tasks, automating them. All sorts of examples can be given here. Or in general, document management. How many routine tasks have been doing? What kind of automation we've been doing so far on these? Is it applicable nowadays? We've been applying so many kind of legacy approaches to automating our tasks, just because we basically had to script them out instead of asking. It's hard to define this. It's asking a reasonable machine to do this for you. Reasoning is a big factor in AI, obviously. Data analysis, this is something that kind of kickstarted AI, and AI has been helping out data analysis for a while, and And this is just becoming even better with the recent capabilities that have been employed. Fraud detection and security, something that we're really interested in with Nikki, how AI can service security. We're already seeing some of the services that Microsoft is providing, integrating AI and helping analyze all of this information that's being gathered by sensors and figuring out patterns, something AI is really good at. And this will become an integral part of a cybersecurity product going forward.
And by the way, just to add in that matter, we recently saw in Microsoft, let's say, security stack some improvement in the behind the scene, which I don't think it was any way announced or anything, but what we saw, especially for the, let's say, Sentinel, we saw much better correlation and much less false positive, let's say, alerts.
Yeah. I mean,
For example, things like password sprays, etc. Yeah.
Exactly. We have another group called Qual Talks, where we discuss these in kind of broader length. Specific cybersecurity, we have a special kind of segment just to cover the news there. And yeah, Microsoft is really doubling down on integrating this into AI and making it more useful. Personalized marketing and personalized everything, meaning
And gaming.
everything will be personalized. Yeah. Video, audio, your whole experience talking to services is now easily commoditized with AI. You can create personalized experience through LLMs very easily compared to what you had to do before. I mean, we're seeing the news about how this will change the movie industry. So yeah, personalizing stuff will become so much easier. And I guess it will be more useful for people because you don't have to generalize everything nowadays. Okay, let's get to the gist of the kind of the question. What is Azure OpenAI? So as we kind of touched on, Microsoft has a long-lasting relationship with OpenAI. I guess from the start, they've been an investor for a while. They've acquired basically half of the company last year, and they did it, I think, at the right time. But this also made it, you know, it's not probably a lot of the people who have initially kickstarted OpenAI and not that doesn't like how things develop, don't like how things develop because the OpenAI is really has closed itself out to the world. It has become a commercial organization for the most part. And I think the reason why it got created was different. But it is what it is. Right now, we just have a really powerful company that has a lot of the experts in AI in this field, and they're able to create products that have been widely adopted everywhere. And for good or bad, they kickstarted this whole revolution. So this relationship is very beneficial to Microsoft because they are the only other place where you can get OpenAI services. It's either you have to pay OpenAI, and there's still a lot of debate. Are we supposed to be allowing that company to have access to our data? Or do we have a more trusted partner in the form of Microsoft, which is everywhere? I mean, I think we can safely say there's no organization of medium to large size that doesn't have a Microsoft service being used. Azure, Microsoft 365, the Power Platform, Dynamics, you name it. At least one of these is there. I mean, just from a kind of authentication perspective, who doesn't use Azure?
And by the way, I'm not sure if how you got the interview from Satya on the Davos forum, but he was asked about what he think about the R1 Rabbit devices, because at the end this This turns down that it's actually investment from Jeff Bezos and also Perplexity are in the mix. So pretty, at the beginning, I thought it's pure scam, but then it turns out that it's very serious guys behind this. And Satya answered that because they asked him, "Do you plan to go in this direction?" He said, "Oh, we're looking for every opportunity. So, we can do this. So definitely, I guess we can expect even something like this, even hardware devices, which will bring AI much closer to us, especially with this kind of
Yeah,
ecosystem."
Satya Nadella really transformed Microsoft for sure. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
hate him or love him,
Now,
he made
hands
the
down.
change to cloud, and he made the right choice with AI now. So it's they really transformed a company that was on a downfall pretty much. I mean, after
Yep.
Windows and Office, there was no innovation. There was nothing that really stood out like Microsoft as a software developer. Anyway, and they also turned to open source, and they are one of the biggest contributor to Linux, and it's a complete transformation from what it was. Anyway, so OpenAI is being offered through Microsoft. They have a bunch of pre-trained generative AI models that we already know. We have a slide. The next slide is we'll cover them, but what we get from OpenAI is a combination of the capabilities that have been developed by OpenAI and kind of the flexibility and the services that we get natively from Azure. So we are allowed to use these models in a safe way. We can integrate them with all the rest of the services. We have all the enterprise grade features like security controls and private networks and the ability to kind of restrict access, and we can implement this into our current design. So it's a non-brainer to use Azure OpenAI right now. Um, it's still, like I said, Microsoft is not able to cope with all of the demand. From the perspective of how much it costs, it's relatively close, if not equal to if you pay this directly to OpenAI. But keep in mind, OpenAI as a company runs on Azure. So they're just offering this as a separate business. I'm not sure how long OpenAI will even operate in its own separate business. To me,
Mm.
we'll see. I just don't know.
I think a bit. I mean, what you said perfectly makes sense, but what we saw actually from this drama is that everything is in the people of OpenAI actually, and let's say several of them.
Yeah,
So I think if these
we'll see.
guys goes in different company, it's
No, I was
the
thinking
money will follow them. Let's say it that way.
will they sell let's say enterprise
Oh,
services directly from OpenAI will just be offered through Azure because it's the scale and the way this is being done is from Microsoft.
but absolutely, I think the main reason why they have different selling channels is because there's a lot of companies which, just not doing business with Microsoft. I mean,
Could
they're
be, yeah,
using
could be.
Google Workspace, and this is just an
Maybe,
alternative.
yeah.
So it should be, it always will be. Even that Microsoft in the recent years put a lot of effort to remove Azure from everything. So from
Yeah.
Entra ID and Azure Security Center, everything become Defender and try to unify this. But there's still a lot of companies which are more like, let's say, centric on the other organizations. And I think that this is the major points of purely open AI. I don't know how they can run it privately. I'm not sure that there's such an offering directly from, I think Azure OpenAI is the only offer where you can run GPT, OpenAI GPT models on your own, let's say.
It's weird, but at the end of the day, I think that it works out for them for now. I mean,
Yeah.
they are prepared to
Yeah.
kind of split this business, and I think most companies will go to Azure anyway. So, I mean, talking about this is in the context of large companies. We're not talking about, just a few people asking where to use services. When you when you run a big company, some of these decisions are based, on long-standing partnerships, how they kind of bundle these services together, how much this will cost in the end. So a lot of factors come into play, and from what we can tell, Microsoft will probably sell these at some point.
Maybe
Right.
a joke aside, but maybe I'll put a poll how much side-to-side VPN tunnels you built from AWS and GCP to Azure.
Okay. You can use several methods to access Azure OpenAI solutions. You have the AI Studio. There's a lot of studios in Azure AI. Almost every service has its own studio, language studio, machine learning studio. There's plenty of these. REST API. This is kind of standard. We have SDKs, and we can also use the CLI to an extent. But yeah, this is kind of the methods. Which models? The first two are very familiar, I guess, at least to us. 3.5. This is what OpenAI has rolled out last November. Oh, November of 22nd. Okay, we're already past the last November, so a year and 3 months ago. And GPT-4 was announced last year and was provisioned. It was really very quickly available in Azure, not with a lot of capacity, but it was still available for testing. We have the embeddings model, which is very useful for the vectorization and when you're doing the ingestion processes, and typically in a RAG scenario you would use embeddings. And we mentioned DALI as the kind of the corporate standard for image generation. They have both DALI 2 and DALI 3 in just a few regions, but it's still available if you want to trial it. And you can integrate this into your applications super quickly.
And just to add, for the embeddings, there were some big, let's say, some recent announcement of new embeddings models, which unfortunately I wasn't able to test them. I'm not sure about Nikki, but some friends and folks mentioned that they're a really big deal. A lot of good stuff with different kind for big, small, etc. So maybe next session we put a little bit more on that. When
we can update them. Yeah, I don't have experience. We're just using the ADA 002, which is kind of the standard. Yeah. How to use Azure OpenAI? As I said, your typical starting point is the OpenAI Studio. They are moving this into its own kind of the Azure AI Studio, it's now called, and it has a kind of a newer interface. But this way you can experiment. This is where you can do. They have this playground section where you can chat with models. You can experiment with DALI, and you have the management section where you do the actual deployments. You create the models, you organize your quotas, and you do all the content filtering if you need to, because responsible AI applies here, and you have to put controls. And Microsoft has a lot of emphasis on this. They have a separate portal for content safety. And it's important to analyze the results that you get from AI solutions and make sure they're applicable in the industry that this is being applied to, or organizations as a whole. Language, the generative pre-trained transformer. I think on our first session last year, we talked about the transformer model, the attention is all you need document, which was the kind of the starting point for GPTs in general. But if you don't know, this is what GPT stands for. And here we highlight some of the capabilities on you. We ask for a cooking recipe. We give it a couple of ingredients. It comes back with a recipe. Now we can even take a picture of the fridge, and it will figure out what do we have in the fridge, and it will create 1,000 recipes that it can mix up. But there's so many use cases. I mean, the natural language capabilities are, you probably exploited them already in numerous ways, so we don't have to touch upon this. But it's the same as using ChatGPT, just from a hosted model. Image generation. Yeah, DALL-E, generate images, edit images. You can vary different images depending on what you need. This is very useful for things like marketing or presentations where you have to come up with content very quickly, or tailor content for some presentation or for a product, for a marketing material. There's so many things where image generation will be useful. You don't have to worry about trademarks, trademark materials. You don't have to buy them from third-party vendors like you used to do. So, this is a good starting point. There's a debate, how good image generation is compared to a real, let's say, an agency that does this for you. But from what I can tell, I'm not an expert at this, but from my use case, it has been great in just generating images that are true life, photorealistic, swapping faces, this sort of stuff, where the other tools that are available, like Stable Diffusion, are really outstanding in my mind.
And you can run it locally.
And you can run it locally safely, yeah, absolutely. And here's some of the kind of the observations. I guess this will be the most useful part for everyone, because the other stuff you can look up. But what are the things that we found? We found greatest takeaways and just consideration. So kind of the obvious ones: network security architecture. When you're doing these deployments, you want to ensure optimal performance. There are the way that these endpoints are being deployed, you have to account for where they're being used. Things like latency do come into play. We can see vast differences from the different data centers, and some of the applications that use OpenAI endpoints would actually be affected widely by the latency introduced, especially if things like RAG. If you want to get a response back quickly enough, you want to place all of your endpoints close to where you're gonna, maybe your front end applications are. We have another slide that can dive deeper into this, but yeah, just from that perspective. Security, how do you want to access this? There are multiple ways, starting from keys. You can leverage managed identities, Azure AD authentication.
Private endpoints.
Yeah, exactly. Operational efficiency. It's what I can see. There's a lot of one of the huge benefits of getting to Azure and using OpenAI is the bounds that you have around the kind of the perimeter and stuff not getting out. So Microsoft has a lot of controls put in place. They actually scan your prompts for content safety. They can drop stuff that gets flagged based on policies. So overall, they've implemented this service very well from what I can tell as an endpoint. It does restrict it in a way. I mean, some of the solutions, especially when it comes to testing and doing POCs, may get in the way of kind of the real life examples. So that's something you have to account for. But I would give kudos to Microsoft about the documentation. It's very well written at this point. It covers a lot of the topics. The Azure AI product group is very active. They provide a lot of patterns already in how to create the right architecture for the different deployments. So it's not like when we started using Azure OpenAI almost a year ago, where we only had a few regions, there was not a lot of documentation. By now, it's more polished and works better. As I mentioned, data processing and privacy, these are things that will remain inside of the organization. You have services that are internal that are being deployed as a SaaS, like the Azure Bing Search, the Azure Enterprise Bing Search, where it also leverages Azure OpenAI, but kind of keeps all of your searches within the bounds of your tenant. So that's great. And other services as well, like the Copilot and others will use Azure OpenAI, but will kind of contain that information within the bounds of the enterprise. Monitoring and content filtering. Mentioned about the content studio, content safety. This is a big topic for Microsoft because the responsible AI, there's a lot of talks about how AI should be implemented. Is there how do we apply accountability, transparency to using these services? It's not only about implementing it, but how to implement it in a way that would be respectful of all these principles that are foundational to most of the organization. Scalability and integration. When it comes to scalability, there are plenty of ways you can scale these services because typically you wouldn't have enough TPMs or tokens per minute across a specific region. It's good to mention that this has been given on a subscription level. So, if you have a subscription that has been enabled for it, Azure OpenAI, you would have a specific set of capacity that's allocated to you. You can request additional capacity from Microsoft. There is a form for each model you can request, and they typically allow that. They will give you more capacity if you give it a sort of a use case in the description. They will give you that additional capacity so you can leverage it, but you have ways to integrate services that Microsoft recently announced something called AI Central, which is an LLM gateway, which allows you to kind of abstract these endpoints, just give it one, give one to developers and manage all these connections, even select common endpoints that are closer together so you can lower the amount of latency that's being occurred. So all sorts of ways. And also there's something called PTUs. I have to remember, I think provision throughput units, which is allocated capacity for Azure OpenAI instead of the kind of pay-as-you-go model where you typically have to share this out with other customers. It's more expensive, and I think this will get, as we go, this will get more in the line of the other offerings. Like we have reserve instances for web apps and other. I think this will be the same. They will start selling these as in a similar manner compared to the pay-as-you-go. Because pay-as-you-go, depending on the model, can be expensive. Some of the important takeaways that I wanted to flag. Access requirements for capacity and latency. Azure regions have different model capacity and model availability. Not all models are available everywhere, which is something to account for when you're doing the design. Talking about the design, there's the reference landings on design since August, and there's some specific designs on how you can do an Azure AI subscription, tie this to an overall landing design. So there's plenty of information, and depending on your use cases, if you're doing RAG and just provision web apps tied to Azure OpenAI, there's a specific way to accomplish that. If you're doing a more grander deployment of Azure AI services, and you involve stuff like natural language processing or vision, you will do a different approach for the landing zone.
Yes, just to add about the landing zone that at the end they treat it like a simple spoke application, which may work in the majority of use cases because they treat it like just an app service with private endpoint on top of it. But at the end, it's turned down that in a lot of use cases, it's make more sense to have it like a separate management group, and especially taking consideration all of your policies design, because usually one of the foundational policies is of course, to limit the regions just to your operations. And because of this current demand, and as Nikki said, not all the models are available, it would be in a lot of use cases better to separate this in different, let's say, management group which applies these policies exclusions. And also I'm not sure, but there may be still organizations which didn't adopted the management groups, but with these limitations of quota per subscription is I think it's the right time to start thinking have more subscriptions.
Yeah, there are in the reference design, they actually, when they're talking about a cognitive Azure AI subscription, they usually imply you spread them into separate applications. So if you have an application, you will build out a subscription just for that with all of the services like load balancing and everything else. But the problem is in the early stages of adoption of Azure AI, there's a lot of POC work going on. So you typically have to have some sort of a subscription or a multiple subscription that will serve this purpose where they don't have a real application. They just have use cases that are testing with. So in this kind of middle ground, until you get something in production, you probably have a bunch of services being deployed and just randomly, I guess. But anyway, we're talking about some of the best practices. So yeah, what we
and keep in mind the private. Sorry for the interruption. The private endpoint, private DNS zones. They're putting some. There's some changes going on there, so yeah, you might take this consideration as well when designing the policies with that.
I think more and more information will come out. It will get more streamlined, and we will end up with great best practices. Yeah, for sure. Track usage and connections. App insights, Azure Monitor, things like that. They will have to be put in place, especially if you're looking to analyze the traffic that you get to the endpoints. That because it's so much. It may be so much, or kind of a bit overwhelming, especially if you're provisioning this into a sort of a corporate-wide chat application. You will get so much coming in. And you will definitely, at some point, may be hit by things like the infamous 429 error, which is kind of the throttling error that people get for Azure OpenAI. So this is where API gateways would be good, either APM or the thing that I spoke about earlier. There are also plenty of solutions from third parties now that when they sell an LLM gateway, which not only allows you to use Azure OpenAI endpoints, but allows you to provision and expose endpoints for Hugging Face models. I mean, if you want to host them somewhere. You can also host Hugging Face models through the Machine Learning Studio. You can deploy these in their own separate capacities if you want to. And you get paid, you pay by the hour on the virtual machine SKU that's being rolled out. Depending on what kind of GPU is being assigned, and it can get very expensive on kind of the higher end tiers. But specifically on OpenAI endpoints, it's more kind of standardized. Assess models regularly. There's so many models, cost effectiveness. What I mean by here is, for instance, ChatGPT-4 Turbo is much less expensive than ChatGPT-4 32K, ChatGPT-4 in general, which was the 8K version. If you just take a look at the list price, you'll see a huge difference. And the funny thing is, GPT-4 Turbo is the most capable model. It has the wider context length. It's the fastest. So
And
it's a no-brainer to move, but again, they don't have enough capacity to cover that need.
And be aware that there's, I think it's the same as connecting them directly to OpenAI, but if you plan to use functions, which I guess you will do, there's a specific version of the models which supporting that. So pay attention on that and not wasting time of why it's not working.
Exactly. The API versioning I've been involved in some troubleshooting specifically for that, where we are looking to use functions, but we had to select a different API version. And that's such a generic message, it doesn't even, you cannot figure this out on your own. You have to do a bit of research to
Wasting time.
understand. Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many API versions that are currently supported by Microsoft, all the way back to the May API version that was exposed. So this is also something that developers have to track with OpenAI in general. And the last few slides, I want to focus on things that concern the Azure, not Azure, but the AI Center of Excellence, something that you want to establish at some point or in the start if you want to do these things correctly. Because at the end of the day, we are trying to govern something very new to the organization. So it makes sense for us to start thinking about how do we create these processes and things. And this is where usually these centers of excellence will come into play. And we definitely need to have one for AI going forward. This is not going away anytime soon. So, and then just a couple of points. Just if you're starting this out, you need to assess the kind of the AI maturity level of your organization, so you can ensure that the COE actually serves the right purpose. You don't want to just create something that would do things that will not be valuable to the organization, and also align this with the business goals, of course. Leadership support. I think we spoke with Nikki, especially him, since he does so many of these presentations around the cloud adoption framework. We've talked about the leadership support as something that's always essential, and this is no different for sure. Securing, but for once, actually, leadership is the one who's pushing this forward. So actually, leadership is asking for all these things to happen. So right now, getting their support is actually a lot easier than what it was when the cloud was being adopted.
I guess it's because AI become much closer to people and much faster. I think it's the fastest adopted technology so far, and that's the reason why people. And by the way, one of my last presentation was actually how to transform the organization other way around, from the bottom to top. But of course, with all the caveats, of course, it's always easier. And much more effective if you have the leadership support. Just to add something here, as we discussed with Nikki, we will put all of these in, let's say, constructive way, and we'll spend a lot more time on that part.
I think this will be useful. I mean, you're gonna avoid so many mistakes by following certain guidelines. You don't want to make these mistakes for sure. Governance structure. I mean, this is something that usually comes with any sort of COE, define clear roles, responsibilities, decision making, resource allocation. Right now, like I said, getting the support, because AI sells itself in front of companies really easily. Getting budget, even in these desperate times, is, I would say, easy enough compared to maybe getting budget for a new cloud project. This would be easier for sure. Or a new governance platform or a new security implementation. this is one, this one is easier. So, but securing the budget, because even the testing phase of kind of getting your allowing developers to test out AI, exposing some endpoints is expensive. It will run you, I mean, depending on the size of the organization, it can run you tens of thousands of dollars per month just to, just from the testing and experimentation phase. But if you do things correctly, you will definitely be able to cut this cost a lot. Diverse team composition. I think this is sort of a takeaway from the cloud, where we know that the right mixture of different experts is a lot better than just getting your infrastructure people here, or in this case, just getting all of the data scientists into the CUA and forming the CUA. I think this will not be sufficient for the purposes of the organization. Continuous learning. This is applicable more than anything else, because every week, every day almost, there is something changing. We never had so many changes happening. I'm not able to keep with everything that's happening. Even on the corporate level, where things are not that moving, not that fast, it's super fluid and responsive. Just look at the Azure AI blog. There's a post almost every day about something.
And again, to double down on that, we'll go in much more details in next session, but having a strategy how to adopt the AI, the learning and educating your team should be one of the very, very first steps, as this will help extremely with subsequent steps and in general adoption. So improve the efficiency, start with small steps, let's say.
Yeah.
Even small steps. But
Shadow AI risks, not IT risks, but AI risks. Be aware of unsanctioned projects. I see this all the time. I mean,
absolutely.
in a large organization, you would not
Yeah.
believe actually how many people are experimenting with AI. And it's, like I said, it's easy to get approval from your superior. They'll give you a small budget and you just run out, maybe get an OpenAI endpoint and start using it for your project and just showcase it what it can do. And being able to discover these and govern these and help developers is essential. So there's a lot of shadow AI going on currently.
And this should be one of the turning point and major forces to start doing it appropriately and as soon as possible, because I know that people in large organization be using GPT-4 from the beginning with companies' data. And as you don't have the strategy to control that, to even educate the people, because they even don't know, the majority of them don't know that there's checkboxes or that this data is used for trainings. And even we didn't know with Nikki. He showed me, I think 2 weeks ago, that there's specific, because we thought that, for example, GPT-4, OpenAI subscription, plus subscription, your data, they always train the models on your data, and we told that only with enterprise or with the new team, they will not be able to train your data. And Nikki found that actually there's some form from somewhere, like a form
very
which
hidden.
is very hidden, which you fill, and now they are not training even with your plus subscription.
Yeah.
So yeah, education is also a key. So yeah.
Absolutely. Clear business value. This is probably the most hardest to define right now. I think most organizations are stuck at the point, let's deploy something, let's see if will people start using it. But the clear business value is hard to define in AI projects. You can speculate on how much you can save, but you really have to get a good sort of statistical measure of how much certain hours cost, how much hours have you been working on a certain task, and how much that when it gets replaced by AI, theoretically, how much you would save. But especially in manufacturing and where you typically have a lot of this written down, you can get some clear business value propositions and show this in front of management. Organizational impact, to me, that's very clear. All of these changes will have an organizational impact. There is a lot of change management in place here. You have to prep the organization. The good thing is there's a lot of requests coming from people. They will typically want, when would you allow me to use ChatGPT? When you allow me to use chatbots? I have this use case, I have this other use case. So a lot of people are actually requesting this. So it's easy to infiltrate the organization now and have people start using it. But at least 50% of the audience doesn't want to use AI for one reason or another. They don't trust it. They don't think it's useful. They fear it for a reason. So kind of the change management pieces of that deployment and that the CUE has to have kind of strong leadership, and they need to convince these folks, because once they do, I think they've done 80% of the job. Data integrity and security, make sure you're safeguarding, applying the security controls that need to be in place. Trust the right vendors. That's completely. Yeah, I think it's just this is something that we've been doing with all the other deployments and other CUEs, so it's absolutely clear. Develop a robust system capable of supporting AI's unique demands and scalability. Azure, to an extent, allows this. It's built into the service for the most part. For OpenAI, we've already talked about some of the strategies that can be used to allow this to happen. But a lot of the principles that come into play, where you are basically taking just a specific part of AI, like you're using inference to an endpoint, but all of the rest of the infrastructure will be the same that you used previously. You need to scale your web app. You need to use containers. You need to use microservices. You need to make sure they are spread in different regions. You need to account for latency. All of this stuff, from as actions goes, is already something that architects typically have knowledge and experience with. They just need to kind of accommodate these parts into the mix that are strictly AI. Business value alignment, judge projects based on their contribution to organizational goals, applying rigor before moving prototypes to production. The last sentence is hard because there's so much push to get everything into production right now. Then it's hard to really figure out, have we done all of the testing necessary? But what I can see, people tend to be forgiving. They still feel that AI is still very new, and sometimes when it doesn't work, or they get an error, or it doesn't give them the right result, most people find this normal, and they still, they want to see the next steps. They want to see this develop. There's still others who are going to be negative and say, okay, you saw what I say, I told you this doesn't work. This doesn't have any sort of impact on the organization. We're just wasting money. You typically will have these sort of people as well, but that's part of the CUE's job, is to convince and showcase the specific technology, how it's being used. So,
Nick, I think we missed the integration with existing system because we jumped in a quick discussion with the shallow AI risk.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can talk about this as well. Yeah, it's there's a lot of project usually where typically your data will be somewhere else. It wouldn't be in Azure, of course. A lot of the data will be self-hosted on premises, but the the current integrations that are being allowed from the different services like the Azure AI Search, Azure endpoints, API endpoints, overall allow you to use a lot of these by default. SharePoint integration is available. So all of these data lake, Azure Data Lake, Cosmos DB, all of these are integrated for the most part. So you can directly employ them, and there are plenty of gateways. And if you already have things like tunnels back to your organization through through VPNs, or all of the network means that we have available, you can connect to your data and start using it. There's a lot of use cases to talk to databases in general. I mean, talk to my data type of solutions and accelerators are very popular because LLMs are able to interpret questions and reverse that back into statements to the databases and interpret the responses back to as real text. So these kind of use cases are widely kind of popular now.
And that's a general advice. As usual, focus on low-hanging fruits. So start small with more simple problems that can be solved in order to build on top of them. Build experience, gather knowledge in general. And the important thing as every COE is, I really love this and said multiple times about the Google advices for how to build the Cloud Center of Excellence. But the most important thing here and everywhere is that the other teams should be happy to see you, should be happy to talk with you. So it's really important, the COE team, to be a nice guys. Let's say in short.
People need to be cooperating with each other, even outside of the CU. So.
Exactly, because they should evangelize the entire adoption. But as I said, we'll go in much more details in the next session.
We'll expand on these for sure. Thank you. That was kind of the things that I wanted to cover about Azure OpenAI, the things around it. I mean, we've accumulated a lot of experience. We're happy to help if you have kind of a more business-related questions. We have we've been doing this for a while, and like we said, probably the thing that differentiates myself and Nikki from generally from other colleagues is that we're really positive about this, and we like doing this stuff. So yeah, I think if you have any other questions, we're happy to help or answer. You can put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute, it's fine.
Just raise your hand.
Well done, Joe. Okay, let me. Are you done? You want to say something, or? Oh, okay. Yes, he was need to run out. Okay. Again, thank you so much for your time. We would like to make this more useful as we go. We tend to do them every month, more or less. I mean, depending on if we have kind of floating holidays and stuff that's happening. But we also have a YouTube channel where we host these recordings. So, people who cannot make the meeting can at least review. So we'll put something in. And if you haven't already, go and add yourself to the meetup that we have, so you can get some regular updates and just information about the next calls we're gonna have. Probably, hopefully, the next one we're gonna be myself and Nikki in one room together, and at some point we want to do these in person, because I think we'd like to meet some of you and maybe just have the opportunity to talk about stuff. And
so as we said, at the end of this month, we'll do our best to have our next session, and we'll put a little bit more effort on more strategic approach of adopting AI in the enterprises and accelerating the AI adoption in general for the organizations. As we all, so far, our focus was to, in general, to accelerate AI adoption for people, understanding better. Really happy that now is closer and closer to the people. So I hope this process would be much smooth than what we saw in the past with the other transformation. Great. Please drop us a message in LinkedIn, Meetup, YouTube, whatever channel. Would be very happy to hear your honest feedback.
Send us a request in LinkedIn if you want. You can that we use that network a lot. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate your support.